Yeah, man, it's almost overwhelming sometimes, but you really, really, really broke it down. I mean, you hear a lot of the elders, back in the day, they would say things about nation building, and even going back to the Republic of New Africa, they wanted the certain states for the black people. So my question is, not saying you had an answer because it's not, it's fairly complex, but where do we go with all of this knowledge that we are acquiring? Do we do like Garvey say, go back to Africa, or do we stay in the cities that we in, like Detroit and Cleveland and Chicago? Do we fight gentrification and build them up and open our own grocery stores, or do we do like the nation said, separate? Do we buy some farmland and do like the Amish and try to rebuild a Black Wall Street from scratch? Or those are just different perspectives, but it's like what, because a lot of people want to know what is the solution, where are we going, what do we do, and
Those are all relevant questions, and I think those questions lead to a certain place, and that place is what is the ideology behind to the solution. So each the answer
Mhm.
to those questions is kind of like what they say. There's no right or wrong answer, right?
Right.
It's based upon your understanding. It's based upon your desire. So if you don't, for me, I'm gonna speak for me. My understanding of our history is that we was oppressed, that we was colonized, right? And so as oppressed people, you can't give oppressed people their freedom and think everything gonna be okay. And we got duped in that way. And as getting duped in that route, we've bought into the integration. And so everything that we tried or done, we I'll be full of shit if I say we haven't progress. Yeah, we made progress. However, at its core, we're still oppressed. We still, black
Yeah.
women are still getting killed by the police on a regular basis. Black women are still suffering high levels of their own oppression, or even getting killed by the police. Black gays are getting killed. I mean, there's a checklist from say 1619 when we first arrived until January 22, and we looked at the cross comparison. There'll be a few variations of differences. Like, okay, they stopped doing this, but they still doing this, right? So
Hmm.
to answer your question, staying in by staying in the city of Detroit, will that reduce us from getting killed from the police? No, because one, we don't own those dynamics. No, we don't have power over our lives. So to have power over our lives, that means that there's a direct thing that we need to exercise. So when the Nation of Islam say separate, what they're meaning is we want to be independent. We have a right to be an independent nation. So fundamentally, looking at the laws of nature, looking at the laws of history, it communicates that we was an independent nation. Though we no longer prescribe to the ability saying that we have a right to determine our own destiny because we see our destiny tied into America, where America sees our destiny tied in as a form of exploitation. So I'm pretty sure we're all history students, but the question is, in what lens are we viewing history? So for me, the road I want to take is to be independent, and that's a liberation theology. That's a liberation ideology, and that's and it's phases. And I think that's the challenge that we have is we don't really understand the ideology or even like when we say Black Power, like it's more than the slogan. It's more than if I just come in and buy at your store, like that's feel good or I don't know if you're a sports fan, they would say that's a moral victory. But that's not the victory. The victory is to be self independent. But until then, we have to be realistic. Realistic. How do we set up shop to build institutions to be able to move our people from point A to point B? And then also, when you look at, I think we over 40 million strong. We're talking about New African Black people here in the United States. In reality, every person can make their own decision. Like, do I want to choose this path, or do I want to stay over here? Um, or do I want to go back to Africa? But I think ultimately it's like not only do I see or believe in the liberation and freedom for Black people, I mean also I believe in the liberation and freedom of the world. Because I mean, if you don't free and liberate the world, we will always be a threat to be oppressed again. And even when you win your liberation, you always have to be on guard for that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you made a real interesting point. I think it's kind of like a lot of people, like, that come from the cities that we come from, they never been outside of them cities, so that's their world, and let alone going outside of their neighborhood or their side of town. Like in Cleveland, most people on the east side, they don't go to the west side. That's like another city to them. You
That's
know what
that's
I'm saying? So let
that's
alone the
Detroit.
right, but it's the same. I mean, pretty much for the Black Americans. So it's like what's going on in Africa and Brazil and China and South America. They not really up on it like that. But I'm a world traveler, so I've been around the world. So an example I could give you is like every country I go to, almost every city, it's a Chinatown.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
you never really hear about somebody burning down Chinatown or stealing or doing them dirty because the motherland is gonna come. They're gonna have to deal with the country.
Right.
So it's like
They got their big brothers and big sisters on alert. I got
right, right. Most countries don't want it with them. Even if they got what they got, they don't want to see them. So it could be like that for black people. It could because if it's a black person in Brazil or Cuba or Europe or Spain or anywhere else, they're gonna say, well, they united now. So we can't kick them around. We can't throw them around. So just as black people in America get their liberation or their independence, you still got the rest of the world that had the same scope, the same view as a black person. Like we look at each other different, like, oh, he black, or he Puerto Rican, he Dominican, he speaks Spanish, or he got a pointy nose and his hair straight, he Indian. The world looking at it like he's all black. You feel me?
you. Right,
So
right,
they
right.
gonna treat you that way. So it's like you say, you gotta just see the bigger picture. It's bigger than just what's going on in Detroit and Cleveland and DC and Baltimore. But it's a way that we can collectivize our struggle because we're going through the same thing, believe it or not.